In this lesson, we're going to be talking about the purpose of a website. What is the ultimate goal of a website for a Montessori school? So I'm going to make some suggestions, tell you my opinions based off, general marketing best practices. Also, based off working with a lot of different Montessori consultants. So first and foremost, one of the biggest shocks to people when I talk about the ultimate purpose of a website is that your website is not there to sell your school. It's not there to sell people on the Montessori method. And when you actually think about that, it makes a lot of sense. But initially, people think that, and by the way, this would be the same thing with any type of communication that's directed towards prospective parents before they have come into the school and visited the school either for a tour or an open house or some type of meeting. Also, the website is not there, it's not there to inform or engage or educate your currently enrolled parents either. That's not the purpose of your main website for your school. And I also am going to say that there are ways to use web pages and website technology or other digital communication formats to do these things, to sell your school, to educate parents on either prospective or enrolled parents on the Montessori method, a lot of values about the school. But the main website of the school is there, its main purpose, and it really should be used as its sole purpose to persuade the most ideal prospective parents to come into the school for a tour or an open house so that they can then decide if this is the right place to put their children, for positioning their kids for the in the best way for their future. So what we're going to talk about next is how this breaks down. In the next lesson, we're going to talk about sort of the components, best practices of a website, and using different digital communication strategies and tools. But the main purpose, if you focus the main purpose of your website on persuading the most ideal parents to come in for a tour, as opposed to selling your school, which both of those two things might be obvious, but if that's not made clear in the purpose and the goals of the design of the website, you end up with a website that's trying to do both of those things at the same time. And what happens is it doesn't perform well towards either one of those goals. One of the most common mistakes we see on Montessori websites is you go to the homepage and there's paragraphs of information about Maria Montessori and the Montessori method, and all of that stuff is wonderful, but it's not, your website's not meant to be like a textbook on the Montessori method, and it's not meant to be, the Montessori magazine. A lot of people, a lot of small businesses in general, they really misuse their website, and the problem is that websites only work well strategically if they're used for singular purposes, because ultimately your goal is to have a whole lot of people coming to your website. And again, there's other ways to use web or digital technologies to educate people on the Montessori method at the right time of your relationship. But when your website is a place where people are coming to basically learn a little bit about your school, no matter what, in the best case scenario, the majority of those people that come to your website are not going to inquire or sign up for a tour. So, you might, if you had a goal of, well, we're going to try to get 10% of the traffic to our website, the organic new traffic to our website, to sort of identify if this is something that they want to learn more about, and then give them a clear path towards signing up for a tour so that they can come in and learn more about it. If that is the goal of your website, which it really should be, then that really should define what content is on those web pages and how much of it is on those web pages. So I want you to consider something. The content, once you've identified that the goal of your website is to take the right ideal prospective parents that may be interested in learning more about my school, we want to give them just enough information, the exactly right amount and the exactly right kind of information that, again, persuades them to want to learn more. So if you kind of give everything, so if you go into all the details, it's not inherently a bad thing to do. But the reality is that if let's say there's 1,000 people coming to your website, and 10% of them are actually really the ideal target and very likely to be a good fit and enroll in your school. So that's 100 people. Now, if your website just kind of, you try to just lay it all out there and give all the information you can, all the decision-making information on whether the parent should or shouldn't enroll, well, you have to ask yourself something. How many of those 100 people are going to just take that information and say, oh, okay, well, I don't really need to come in for a tour now because I really know everything. A good chunk of them might do that, as opposed to giving them just enough information so that they're still interested, and that maybe they're even more interested, right? They came from an ad, maybe, or they did a Google search. They came to your website. You want to be, again, focusing on the value propositions that speak to the ideal prospective parents. So those 100 people are of those. We have 1,000 people that got to the website. Let's say only 100 of them are really the ideal addressable market that you want to bring in for an inquiry. So you want to give them those kind of top-line value propositions that you might be using in the ad with a little bit more information that gets them even more connected to an interest in learning about the school, but not everything. Because the reality is that you can't give them everything. The more if you give too much, there's a balance. If you give too much information on your website, then you're going to be giving a good portion of those 100 ideal prospects a good reason not to book a tour, or maybe just to do it later. And then again, they fall off and they forget and they end up at another school, just because you didn't capture them at that moment. So if you give them the kind of information that they need to ultimately make a decision, that's too early. And that not only can that make them sort of abandon the process, not sign up for a tour, and again, forget that you exist and end up at another school across the street, even though they might have been perfect for your school, and maybe even happier there. So you want to give them that information to come into the tour, but also you have to think about the cognitive model that people are going through when they're making a purchase decision. So when we're talking about the size of a decision of where you're going to put your children, I know that when I was doing tours at schools, this is like, does it get any bigger than that? I'm not sure. Like, obviously, it's a pretty high price tag. Where are you going to, drop on average $10,000 a year? I mean, in my neighborhood, in my area, it's a heck of a lot more than that. So it's a pretty big decision just on the money, on the actual impact on our on our income. And then also, we're talking about the future success of your children. What could be more important than that? So this is a massive decision. So the bigger a decision is, the more information and the more interactions the person that's going to make that ultimate purchasing decision or enrollment decision in this case for their children, it's going to make it very sensitive, very, very sensitive. Every stage of that process, when humans make a buying decision, we all go through the same cognitive model. There's different stages. Depending on the size or the size of the implications of the decision, that process takes longer or shorter. Meaning, if you click on a website and buy something for $5 on Amazon with one click, you go through the exact same mental process, but you go through it much faster. And when you go through, as opposed to, where you're going to enroll your child, it is the same mental cognitive process, but those stages are much longer. There's a lot more trust building. There's a lot more sensitivity to minor things that are not so minor a lot of times. And so if you position it that way, how sensitive these decision-making stages are, communication can have a very impactful decision whether that prospective parent's going to go from this stage, one stage, to the next. And beyond just trying to not give them information that would, kind of make them decide like, oh, I don't need to go through the effort of signing up for a tour now or signing up for an open house because I got enough information here off this website. The problem is, could they ever have enough information off a website to make a decision whether they should or shouldn't enroll their child in your school? It's impossible. It's only in very rare edge cases do parents actually enroll a child in a school without first visiting the school at least once, right? So that hardly ever happens, and only in a scenario where someone's coming in from overseas and they don't have the option to do tours. But the same model is going through. They're just getting the information they need in different ways at that point. But for 99% of the time, a parent is not going to enroll their child in your school without first coming into the school, and that's why schools really have a pretty easy time enrolling children once the parents come in for a tour. Again, about a 75% enrollment rate, conversion rate, once the parents are finally in the school. But it's getting the parents into the school, which is this very sensitive period, and there's so many opportunities to communicate either the wrong kind of information, or too little information, or too much information. So it really is figuring out how to strike the right balance. So it's not something that should be taken lightly, and this is not something that, again, just anybody should be doing. Your website has the power and is one of the components of an enrollment marketing system, especially when you're talking about the stage of getting a parent into the school for a tour. This is this very sensitive period where most schools are giving either the wrong type of information or too much information. They are giving the parents an excuse not to have to go through the effort of coming in for a tour, or postponing that decision till later, or actually turning them off. So when somebody is trying to make the majority of parents that are an ideal fit for a Montessori school do not know that they're looking for Montessori. They know they're looking for certain values and certain results for their children, but they don't know it's Montessori, and they can't know it's Montessori until they come into the school and see it. I tell you from surveying, thousands of parents and talking to hundreds of schools, and also from my own personal experience. You just don't know you don't know what it means by reading a website. You got to come in, and it has to be a full body experience, and you need to meet passionate educators, and you need to see the amazing education methodologies and tools, and that's just not something that can happen through a website, no matter how great the pictures are, no matter how well crafted and how long the paragraphs are. It's not the right kind of information for parents at that stage, and this is a sensitive stage, right? And if anybody understands sensitivities around communication and stages, it's people that run Montessori schools and teach Montessori, right? So you really, what's remarkable is that a lot of what Maria Montessori taught about how to educate children is a lot of it is directly parallel to how to actually pull in the most ideal parents and how to speak to them, how to communicate with them, when, and how to get that person into a position so that they can be in a position to make a decision about the best place for their children. So your website is, again, on a high level, not the right place to be selling your school. Same thing goes for your ads, any pamphlets you've ever designed, your information packets, whatever you are any format, any medium of communication that's going out to parents during the stage while they've just inquired, before they've actually come in for a tour, has to be approached very cautiously and very sensitively, and it has to give them just the exact right information that makes them realize that they need to come into the school. That is what the goal of all forms of communication is with parents. Your website plays a major, major role in that. So we're going to break that down a little bit further in the next lesson.